Hello chess friends, this is International Master Valeri Lilov, and today we're going to be talking about how to tackle symmetrical positions. You see, it's a little bit of a challenge in terms of a topic because symmetric positions are not too easy. I mean, they're not easy to understand, and even more so, they're not very easy to play. So what I want to tell you in terms of playing symmetric type of positions are a few things. I'll help you to feel more confident about playing those type of situations. So let's start. First, let's begin with the question. This is a very important question, by the way. So let's start with that one actually. What do we need to understand is a symmetric position? For example, let's talk a bit about the variation of e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6. Bishop to b5, bishop b4. This is the four knights defense, d3, d6. See, this is a very typical symmetric type of position out there. And you see, this is very important. What we find out is that there is almost complete, there's complete symmetry. It's not going to stay like that, but for now there is. And the real question is, okay, so what do we do, or how do we plan or think about this type of position? Okay, this is very, very interesting. The first thing you have to understand is that you need to be looking and very carefully concentrate on making imbalances. Yes, if you want to win, you need to figure out a way to create an imbalance, and then after continuing with this, this is very, very important out there. See, you need to create an imbalance by forcing certain bits of weaknesses, and then we can challenge them and then create some problems. Now, okay, what are the ways to go forward? Okay, so the whole concept in the intention is to make, you see? So like, to make your pieces go up and create threats. See, first and foremost, we need to complete development by bringing that bishop out from the c1, and then we can go so much better. What we do is bishop to the g5. Now white is given the ability to play along with a move of knight at the d5, which is excellent. And then what you realize is that if black plays, say, bishop takes to the c3, of course, then we can see there is the move of b takes to the c3. Now, basically, white has two bishops. It's got a very nice tension out there. And of course, after we consider is that after b takes to c, if black plays queen to the e7, then white plays the move rook to the e1, and then this is a great sequence of just setting up the pieces and moving closer to the center. Now, what's the whole idea there? So there is the first imbalance right here. There is the exchange, which basically adds to the white ability of controlling the center. And then we can see that there is this excellent, I would say, really good sequence. So let's talk about that. After continuing with the move of rook to the e1, just as it is right now, and like this opportunity to prepare for the d4, white gets the bishop pair. And of course, he has to pay for that. I mean, he's getting his bishop pair removed. So, what do we do in this moment? So, what's the right thing to consider? Now, actually, after continuing with this, in case black plays knight at the d8, that's one thing. So, this is the first thing. We need to look for an imbalance, one that's not too risky, but basically one that will provide us with a chance to get stronger in the middle and basically extend some control. So this is very important. So like, actually this is going to be a very, very powerful thing to do. Like, we need to go ahead. Now, what if we do a move of d4? I mean, of course, now our idea with the move of pawn to the d4 is to really set things in motion, to not just towards the center in this type of position, but also we can see that that's a good candidate. Of course, we get an opportunity to follow up when in this type of position, and then so once we have that d4 come down, we are bringing the plan But now we need a more specific approach. So how do we handle this? So the whole idea behind it is that White is really able to build up, to set up all this development and preparation in terms of, okay, so what we need to do. Let's just get ready. Let's make this whole thing work. And it's good. I don't want to say that it is necessarily the best of all things out there, but then we get to see, okay, White has a lot of space, just a really good support, and a nice way of bringing the pieces on into a good position. So you do need to understand the concept behind all this, because it's not just about, okay, I have a nice position, let's do it. Okay, you have gotten a very good command, solid support, and the resource that needs to be added so you can be more successful. So White just has all those features. Now, what's going on next? It's kind of interesting to talk about it. Okay, White is doing a good job. He has all this, but how exactly is he supposed to make this whole thing work? Okay, so that's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Now, I'd like to point that out. Now, given the advance and the attack and everything that White has built and set, you need to do two things. Okay, so the very first thing that's quite necessary is the possibility to just bring the bishop right down. Now, I know what you're thinking about that move, so you don't have to say anything. This doesn't sound like a move that we just want to deliver. It sounds more like a move that's supposed to be probably played, but we just, I don't know, doesn't look so good. Now, here is my thinking. A candidate of this kind is going to make a lot of chess players feel on edge about having to go backward. And in many of my own suggestions, I've said, don't do it. If you do it, then you are at a risk to make something really bad and something really, really horrible. So, what you need to see, though, and you need to understand it too, is that it is absolutely necessary that we come back with our bishop like this, because then, and only then, this bishop is going to find itself going forward in order to move along the a3, in order to set things up against the d6 and e5, while the opponent is going to have a lot to worry, exactly for this one reason. The two bishops in their ways are going to have much to show in terms of potential, possibilities, and pressure against the opponent, all coming in the same way, at the same time, in the same direction. This is a very, very important principle to understand. So we understand it's not going to be just the idea of just bringing the bishop somewhere, but it's going to be an excellent resource and the extra tension again that we have against the opponent. So let's just see. I mean, what do we do? What are the other type of imbalances that we could eventually cause in this position? Is there more? Well, you see, that depends. But yes, there is more to be added. For example, let's imagine that Black will just play along with something. So probably he could try c5 in order to just push in and shoot out at the center. Is this possible? Yes, of course. It is more than just a possibility. It's something that he might want to do quite quickly. Now, the good news is that once again, you don't have to worry about that. The fact that he will try bringing himself up in order to do this does not necessarily give him all the right and the opportunities to do it successfully. Let's see. For instance, right this moment, when he actually plays this move, what does White have the ability to do in this position? Let's just think about this very carefully. The moment Black has already played along with this type of a move, which is great, in some way for him, we are given an opportunity And I want to say that because it is the truth. This is the only truth that matters. The moment black is just playing it along like this, white gets an incredibly strong sequence to challenge. First off, okay, there's this question, and I know that you're thinking about it. Is this enough? Now, do we have what it takes to make our position strong enough, or good, or powerful, or efficient, as of that matter? Do we have enough? Now, this is a very, very good question. And I want to put it this way. When you are ever thinking about do we have enough or do we not have enough, I want you to ask yourself and answer one very specific question. Okay, we got space, we got control. What we need is to prepare and expand the position. Expanding comes with one or two moves that give you the like for example, now this bishop can come out of the g2, and then that knight can come out to h4. But it's not just that. Okay, these are only a few, or let's go it this way, only a couple of the moves that are really necessary in order to give white the amount of control and options that he needs to attack or challenge the opponent. So this means it will take a couple of moves. It will take a few moves time to do it. But the delivery, the real threats, the actual problems that will be put there for black to resolve are not going to be easy. For instance, in case he plays rook to the d8, white can do g3. If black plays c6d, there is c6d. Any sort of opening of the position is really going to make it very difficult and very painful for black to secure his position in a good way. And so that just adds to the problems. What sort of problems? Well, the problem that, first of all, not only that he is weak in the middle, but then there's also going to be a move of d5. There is bishop to a3, and then there is an e5 to be challenged, and then there's the d6 that will be threatened, and there's like more of those. More things to happen. Yes, take that slowly. Now, again, this is one of the things that people don't actually get. How do we get this? How do we do it slowly? Well, it's simple. Taking things slowly usually requires a couple moves to get things right. But the most important is that we will have our options and opportunities already created, already set in place. So the fact is that as white has this pawn on d4 challenging the e5, and the rest of the pieces are also pretty good, then we got what's necessary, what's really needed, so things can work. For example, after b6, what we can do is bishop to the b2. And this is just the beginning, of course, because we understand all the value of these few candidates. Like, what is this all about? Well, I mean, you understand it. There is the challenger in e5 that's being made because of the bishop. This is very important. And that's only the beginning. I mean, essentially, the other important problem that black has to resolve is if he plays with a move of edicts to the d, which will be probably what you could say is one of the ideas. I also feel like black will have a significant problem because what's really going to happen in this type of position? Well, after the exchange and the recapture, so something you see is that there is going to be a problem. What is it? Well, after the trade, then there's going to be knight x to the d4, knight f5. Now that's just one way to play symmetric positions, causing an imbalance, getting ready to expand, giving it some time to really build and set the necessary amount of pieces for the attack. It's a good idea to think about it like that. It's really, really good thinking. But that's of course not everything. There is more to that, for sure. What is more than that? What's more important in a way? Okay, this is a good setup of sequences in terms of piece development, command, and just anything you want, really. It's good having it. But what else is there? What else really counts and what else really matters? Now, there is one thing that you need to understand that also just adds to the value of this position. And, okay, so while with the move of bishop to the g5 and these possibilities do count in a way, Some people will not agree. So let's talk a little bit about that. So first of all, let's go for a different symmetry. Symmetrical position that goes with c4, let's say c6, e3, e6, then knight f3, knight f6. Now, is this a symmetrical position? In a way, yes, it is a bit of a symmetrical position. There's not much to change. Black is developing in one specific way. He's bringing up his pieces, and this is the kind of position that we have. So what is to be said about this? Okay, now you need to understand a few things. Okay, the first of those things is that Black is going to give his best, basically, in order to actually challenge, threaten, or pose some sort of a problem versus White's middle. Now, that doesn't mean he is going to be good, but it simply means that he will follow, or he will try to follow, an approach to attack. Now, you need to be extremely careful at the way you approach this so that you don't end up in a trouble yourself. So what are the couple different ways on how you could stay away? Okay, so you need to know about this. First of all, let's go with that. When Black's knight comes out to the d7 square, just like this, what we need to be doing, okay, is you need to follow a few different things. The first thing that needs to be applied, very importantly, is that we have got, you have got to do what we call as most necessary and most important in order to extend your position. Now, is it possible? Yes, it's e4. That is the kind of imbalance we're talking about. It's a great move, and in case Black chooses to exchange this, you can understand the reason of why this move really works out all that well. With the idea of playing e4, in case Black picks up to take this pawn, supposedly with d takes to the e, White's going to go forward and do a move of knight takes to the e. Now this I find most appealing, because it's not just the fact that White will destroy in some way Black in the center, but then after knight takes to the e4, bishop takes to the e4, should the Black knight just choose to come back, White can just bring his own bishop down, and then he is going to be at a very, very good position to advance. Now, how is this going to happen? Well, not only that there is queen d3, but then there's also b3 and bishop to b2, rook e1 plus rook d1, and then there is the ability for White to practically set every single piece in one way or another to reach out and attack against the opponent. So this isn't just going to be about like feeling good or having some nice control or development. It is going to be about White actually setting himself in position, in condition to threaten or attack the opponent. Now that itself is a big idea. So let's just take the opportunity to do this as well and as good as we could. It's small moves, but very consistent ideas. And White makes it work. It's really nice. So what else is there? I mean, it's going to be pretty interesting to see the direction. I mean, okay, when this is played, perhaps what Black can do is to make c5, but then you can understand yourself why that's just not going to work too greatly. White's got bishop to the g5. The center is pretty stable, the knight is good, the queen is supporting, and also the bishops are lined up together so that they provide the most necessary amount of space and value that they are supposed to provide. Is this great? I don't know, but it certainly feels like a good start. And so, White is setting it up for a very valuable attacking. So, like, symmetric positions are supposed to not stay like this. It is up to you to change them and figure out exactly how to make these work. So, this is the concept. This is the idea. Set it up, get ready, and then bring yourself for the attack. Now, of course, there is more to that. I mean, surely there is. It's just one of the things that I believe black could do. I mean, let's go for it for different symmetrical type of position. One of the symmetrical positions that can happen is, for example, we can call that the English symmetrical. How are we supposed to play along this line? Bishop g2, bishop g7, short castles, d3, and d6. What do you expect from this? Now, this is very interesting. Let's talk about it. When that sort of symmetry happens, you need a plan. And I'm not just talking about a plan to generally try something big. We're talking about a specific plan. Okay, like where do you want to have your forces go so that they could set up whatever you need in terms of control and possibly challenge on your opponent? Is it possible? Yes, it should be. So how do we do that? How do we think of it? How do we make this work? So let's go with that. First and foremost, you need to understand that the plan depends very much on the goal you have. Now, what is a goal? A goal is like deciding on, okay, my idea will be to plan along this idea, or my goal will be to plan along this thing, or this principle, or that concept. Now, this is very critical and important by itself because when you think this way about each of the concepts, it will help you to understand better the value of every one of them. And so, what is our concept supposed to be in this position? What does white want to do or follow up through in this moment? Well, this is a very good question and I love it as an idea. So what we got to do in this moment is to play along with rook to the b1. So in case of bishop to the d7, we could see that after this type of a move, and then actually after continuing with the move of, so like a3, and then basically if black plays queen c7, then we can do a move of b4. Is black able to do this? Maybe. But now white is using the extra tempo to make the position not as symmetrical, not as straightforward or as simple. And in that regard, in that way, by advancing with the pawn upon b4, we see not just the challenge against c5, not just the opportunity to expand, but also the way to line that b file up so we have extra tension going against b7 and the rest of black's pieces being backward and not that capable in terms of setting themselves up for the advance. So like if black plays b6, we can have bishop to the g5. Very strong approach. What white is going to prepare along is going to be queen to the d2 plus bishop h6. These two bishops will essentially get exchanged out there. And of course after this, and then, that's just the way. Okay, so let's get back to an earlier stage. I mean, this is like how we choose to expand. We try to get imbalances, and we try to basically play. What about other type of symmetrical positions? Now, for example, there is a symmetrical position which is more or less not the same. Let's talk about, for example, the Caro-Kann. The Caro-Kann that goes after c6, d4, d5, knight c3, d takes to d, and knight takes to d is the position of this kind, in which we see a very interesting asymmetry. So like it's certainly not the same. But in a way I would say that it's also the same. What do I mean by that? Well, it's not the same by the fact that D is exchanged for the E, and it makes it a little different for sure. But it is kind of the same too, because something we get to realize is that you see after the exchange and the retake, maybe bishop f5 and then knight g3, black has to go back with the bishop, then white has h4, h6, knight f3, going along with knight to the e5. That's very strong. And it really takes white's pieces and white's opportunities to the next level very fast, very quickly. And so that makes it for a great plan. h5 pushing the black bishop down and helping white out with his activity of bishop d3. See, all these little moves that white is able to add in the plan really count. Why? Because they do. Because it is just about that one idea. Bring the pieces together, put them close by, and make sure they work towards the activity. After bishop takes to the d3, queen takes to the d3, e6, and then bishop f4, we see how black's queen is being cut off, so it doesn't go to the c7 in any time soon. White is getting ready for a long side castling as well. And these are just few of the little things White is able to get. Again, in most of these cases, essentially, White stands better because he starts first, but that doesn't necessarily mean that White is always going to win. It just means that White is starting off in a good way. Check will be met by bishop d2, and then there is, of course, long side castling. Now, what's the process? What's the progress here? Well, as White gets to complete his development in this way, of course, the next concept, the next idea will be to follow it through with some moves. Like, for instance, what White can throw in is a variation of rook e1 plus knight e4. We also realize that this type of approach can give White a chance to probably move his king out of the way and plan along the line of c4. So that way he could step up and then just concentrate. And then, of course, after continuing with this move, then we could set it and maybe move along something like d5. It is a great activity. It's a very, very good way to do this. What about black? Well, it kind of depends, on what he can do in this type of position. But actually, I think that most of black's pieces are unable to do the same. So it's not exactly a symmetric position, although it has certain subtle similarities, I'd say. So yeah, of course, this is a very good idea. Okay, so after that, surely White is doing much better in terms of the plan and all. So, okay, what else I can tell you? How do we play symmetrical type of positions of a different kind? For example, just for example, let us imagine that we have a position of this type. So let's go going right back to the point. We would like to see, okay, so just let's get back. What to do when, for instance, White plays a knight f3. Sometimes people play like that. Now, there is no special advantage coming of such an approach, so we can expect that the position will be once again fairly symmetrical. There's d3, and then there's d6 out there, and of course, let's talk about that. So what do we do now? It's very total symmetry. Now keep in mind that in a symmetry there is always an edge available. I'm not saying that there will be an edge you'll find, because that depends on the position, but you've got to be looking for an edge. Now, how do we look for an edge? Where do we find an edge? Now, this is a good question, a very nice concept I'd like to answer. The whole thing is that what we need to do is to go ahead and then just focus our attention on the king's side. You see, White has a little bit of an edge because of the center, and then in case Black plays a move of e5, what White can do is knight h4, play along with f5, f4, f4, f5, g4, and just the opportunity to build up the attack out there. And this is the way to go ahead. Okay, and then after the move of knight to the h4, knight c6, then there is f4, and then you can play along with f5. You see, White has a little bit of an edge. Now, what if Black tries to do the same? What in case Black plays the same? You see, the same sort of symmetry never goes. You see, Black always loses because, he starts second. The easiest way to see that example is now, given that he cannot take there because of the knight. And also in the 4 knights, something I've mentioned earlier, there's this example, like how if the knight f3, knight c6, knight here, then the bishop's coming out, castles. This is all something I've shown a moment ago. If Black tries to follow exact symmetry, he can. Attacking, take, here. And then you see just that White starts first. So he plays queen d2 with a threat of exchanging and moving the queen right in front of the Black king. So if Black simply tries to follow the symmetry, he's going to lose. Why? Because White will give a check at one point. It's actually just as simple as that. And then you realize, there is no possibility to follow symmetry for black. The one who basically has to do the second move usually loses, and that's after queen d3 with the threat of bishop takes f6, queen h6, the challenge on f6, the black king being there, and the horrible development that he's got with all of it, all of those backward pieces, just makes it for an incredible idea of attacking and setting black behind. Wow, what it turns out extremely successful. So those are all my ideas about symmetry. Hope you find them useful in your next games. Thanks.